Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., and no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, we appreciate you for rocking with us here on the show. The 49ers divisional round opponent is set after the Green Bay Packers, as a 7 seed, went on the road to AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, and pulled off a shocker of a victory over the Dallas Cowboys. Final score from Jerry World, 48-32. And this is a Packers team that started off the season slow, and it looked as though it was going to be impossible for that ball club to make the playoffs. They trade away Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love in the early portion of the season. Didn't play all that well, a lot of that due to inexperience, but this is a Packers team. Since the midway point of the season, they've made some masterful defensive adjustments after the defensive coordinator came under fire. Jordan Love has started to find a groove, and one of the youngest teams in the National Football League has been rolling. And if you watch this game, you would never think that the Packers were a 7 seed, the first 7 seed in the history of the NFL to win a playoff game, and they really dominated this ball game from the start of it. Opening drive of the game, they marched 75 yards right down the field, and the Packers able to put up 27 points in the first half alone. Jordan Love nearly perfect and had a perfect passer rating of 158.3. He completed 16 of 21 passes for 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Aaron Jones with the hat trick, 21 totes for $118. Over the last 3 weeks to a month, he's looked like one of the best running backs in the NFL once again. And Romeo Doubs, he's really emerged as the Packers' #1 wide receiver because Christian Watson has been injured so often. He went off. And what really stood out to me about this Packers offense is Matt LaFleur's play calling, his play designs. He had guys streaking wide open time and time again. And Dan Quinn, Cowboys defensive coordinator, coached as though he had 1 foot out the door and 1 foot in the door because there are a lot of reports that he is going to replace Pete Carroll as the next Seahawks head coach. Doubs goes off for 6 grabs and a $151. Dak Prescott, 2 interceptions in the first half alone. And really, things started to snowball for that Cowboys offense, which could not find a rhythm. And honestly, this 16-point deficit for Dallas was much worse because the Cowboys scored a lot of garbage time touchdowns. So the Packers really able to dominate this game in all facets, and the stats certainly empty for CeeDee Lamb. 9 catches, 110 yards, but barely did anything in the first half because Green Bay had a very, very good defensive game plan. And this afternoon in the wild card round of the NFC playoffs, classic Cowboys. And Jerry Jones said, quote, "I'm floored. It's one of the most shocking results that he has seen since he's been involved in sports." And now there are, of course, reports circulating that Mike McCarthy's going to get canned, and Jerry Jones could pivot from Mike McCarthy to trying to land Bill Belichick. Impressive season for Green Bay. I think Kevin Stefanski is going to win Coach of the Year. The Cleveland Browns won 11 games, and they started 4 quarterbacks this year. Really, really difficult to do. But with how young this Packers team is, and given the player that they moved off of in Aaron Rodgers, and then making the playoffs with 9 wins, and then going on the road to beat a quality Dallas team. I know that the Cowboys have choked for about 3 decades now. Haven't made it to an NFC championship game since the mid-90s. I understand that, but this was a difficult opponent in a difficult atmosphere where the Cowboys had not lost all year, 8-0 at home, and the Packers with an inexperienced team, with not a lot of players who have played in the playoffs, end up not only winning this football game, but dominating it. And Matt LaFleur has done a heck of a coaching job this year to maximize his players, have them comfortable, make the necessary adjustments on the defensive side of the ball, but also to groom and develop Jordan Love this year. And I got to make this be known for all Niners fans out there. I understand it's the Packers, 7 seed. They barely got into the playoffs, didn't punch their playoff ticket until week 18. I'm telling you right now, with how this Packers team ended the regular season, 3 wins in a row, with how they played against the Dallas Cowboys, This Green Bay team is legit, and San Francisco cannot take the Packers lightly. If they do, they'll get upset, even though they're the number 1 seed, and they'll spoil an opportunity to make it to the Super Bowl with home field advantage going through Levi Stadium. My takeaways from this Packers-Cowboys game, and obviously a lot of this is Packers-related here and Packers-focused because that's the next opponent for the Niners. Jordan Love threw with anticipation, able to extend plays inside the pocket, outside of the pocket. Really liked his poise today. There were a couple of times in which he held onto the football, took a shot, but was able to deliver the ball downfield. San Francisco's going to have to be tidy on the back end because of the creative play designer and play caller that Matt LaFleur is. 5 incompletions against this Cowboys defense, that's impressive for 272, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And what makes this Packers team dangerous, they can throw it with the quarterback who's starting to feel himself, who's gathering confidence, but they can run the football as well. And Green Bay always built and fortified very strong in the trenches with a good offensive line and a good defensive line. Romeo Doubs is going to be a really big matchup for Charvarius Mooney-Ward. Named a second-team All-Pro for the first time in his career, first-time Pro Bowler. He's going to have his hands full with him. 6 catches, 151, and a touchdown, as well as Christian Watson, who's been dealing with the problematic hamstring over the last 2 years, barely played and wasn't really featured much in this Packers offense, but another week allows him to heal up. And those are 2 very good wide receivers on top of a Packers team that has a lot of quality tight ends. Green Bay, also of note, played a lot of zone defense against Dallas. And because of that, Dak Prescott, when he dropped back and wanted to go to his first read, it was rarely there. So he had to come off of it. And when he had to come off of it, he would scan the field. And the Packers did a good job of defending Dallas's explosive offense downfield and on that back end. And when Dak had to go through his progressions, given the Packers' pass rush, he was under siege. He had to move off of his spot. And he got sacked, he got hit, and really had a difficult time in dissecting what the Packers were doing with that zone defense. And I mentioned the zone defense specifically because what did the Baltimore Ravens do against the Niners on Christmas night? Mike Macdonald, former Michigan defensive coordinator, now the Ravens defensive coordinator, number 1 defense in the NFL, played a lot of zone defense. And that basically takes away what Kyle Shanahan wants to do. Pre-snap motions don't always matter against a zone. You run pre-snap motions to see if the defense is playing man defense or zone. If there's a man that follows the motion man, that signifies that the defense is usually playing man-to-man most of the time. But it also puts your offensive weapons in a spot to exploit an area of the field, to find a gap in the defense, to put your playmakers in a position to succeed a little bit. And when the defense just sits back there, Brock Purdy isn't also able to decipher what areas of the field are going to be open as compared to when the defense is playing man. So I think the Packers are going to play a lot of zone defense to try to test the San Francisco team, especially after seeing what the Baltimore Ravens did and the problems that they caused this Niners offense on Christmas night. So with that, I ask you this. Get your game predictions into the comment section right now. My predictions coming up a little bit later. Type SF for the Niners or GB for the Green Bay Packers. When you think Niners-Packers, historic rivalry between 2 blue bloods in the history of the NFL and 2 iconic brands, the SF logo and the G logo. And this is another chapter in this storied rivalry. These are 2 of the best and most iconic franchises that this beautiful league has ever seen, and this will be a record 10th time that San Francisco and Green Bay meet in the NFL playoffs. The 49ers do lead the series between these 2 organizations 5-4, but this was a lopsided matchup prior to Aaron Rodgers' arrival in Green Bay, because Aaron Rodgers then went 0-4 against the Niners in the playoffs. San Francisco has won 4 straight games over the Packers, going all the way back to 2013. I can't wait for this game. We'll be live doing a watch party for it. If you're pumped up as well for Niners-Packers, this has become a pretty good rivalry over time because of the history between these 2 squads. I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Only getting started with our preview. Make sure you get started with Factor Meals. and you can get 50% off when you use the code NinersChat50. We're about halfway through January already, which is really crazy to think about. Get your 2024 off to a great start if you haven't already done so with Factor meals, and get started on those resolutions with Factor so that you're ready to really tackle all of your goals. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning, and it sets you up for success here in 2024. Skip the grocery stores, the prep work, and the cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered straight to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from every week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you're going to have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolution. So, factormeals.com/NinersChat50. Get signed up today. Save money, get good food, America's #1 ready-to-eat, delivered straight to your door meal delivery service. My keys to the game for the Niners to pull out a win and make it to their 4th NFC Championship game over the last 5 years. And there's pressure on this team to capitalize in this window because while a lot of the core players on this team are still young, it's closing just a bit. I think the 49ers have to start fast. And when they start fast and they can dictate the pace and the flow of the game and they get out to an early lead, they can control the opponent. That allows the defense to play without thinking, and it allows the offense to really get humming and clicking on all cylinders. And I thought it was pretty telling how the Packers took the football first in this game against the Cowboys because they wanted to set a statement, and they drove 75 yards right down the field. And we know that in every one of the Niners' losses this year, they have struggled to come back from behind. And when you start the game coming from behind, and you're coming off the bye, and you're not as fresh as you usually are, playing week to week, and your starting quarterback in Brock Purdy will have 3 weeks in between the Washington game and this game, you start to feel the pressure a little bit, and you start to overthink things a little bit instead of just playing with their hair on fire without thinking. That's what the Green Bay Packers did in this game against the Cowboys. There was no hesitation. They were decisive, making quick decisions offensively and defensively, and they were firing. And if the Niners are able to start fast, they can really just control the game from there on out and then rely on their talent, their scheme, and their dominance physically on both sides of the football. And as part of that, Brock Purdy has to stay poised. Dak Prescott in this game was not poised at all, and you could tell that he was seeing ghosts. And the communication for that Cowboys offense was just off right from the jump. Dak Prescott throwing a couple of interceptions, throwing to guys when they're not at the correct spot, wide receivers pulling up on their routes, and you could tell that Dak, when he moved off that first read and had to do his progressions and go through his progressions, better way to put that, he just started to overthink, and the game wasn't coming to him in a type of flow state mentally that sometimes you see with Dak Prescott. And this Green Bay defense, they're going to oppose multiple looks for this Niners offense. They're going to play zone. They're going to play man, looking to confuse Brock Purdy. Now, there were 16 games between the final preseason game and week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Brock Purdy played really well in that game, threw for 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, both absolute dimes to Brandon Ayuk. I think he was like 16 to 21 that day, so I'm not too concerned about rust. But I am concerned about Brock Purdy remaining poised if the Niners get off to a slow start and they turn the football over. And if Brock Purdy starts to throw a couple of picks, that's when he starts to press a little bit like he did against Baltimore, like he did against Cleveland, like he did against the Minnesota Vikings. Number 3, avoid the back-breaking turnovers. I think the only way that the Niners lose this game is if they turn the football over. Packers, +2 in the turnover department over Dallas. One of them went back for a pick 6, and then Jair Alexander's interception, that was deep into Cowboys territory. So the Packers took over on some short fields, and they were able to capitalize. And in each of the Niners' losses this year, pretty much, what's been the identity of them? It's turnovers, sloppy play, penalties, and San Francisco shooting themselves in the foot. And when they've turned the football over, it's come in plus territory, meaning it's come in the opposition's portion of the field, which then gives the other team a short field to put points up on the scoreboard. And the Packers were able to take advantage of that today, and they also capitalized in the red zone. That's a recipe for disaster. For Jordan Love, Niners are going to have eye discipline in the secondary. They're going to have to set the edge, and they're going to have disciplined pass rush lanes. Because Jordan Love can hang in the pocket, but then he can jet to his right, jet to his left. He can manipulate the pocket where he moves around in it, trying to buy time to make a play downfield. And you can do everything right. You can get to him with your pass rush. You can have a good coverage scheme downfield. But if Jordan Love is able to escape a sack, if he's able to buy time to make a throw downfield, allowing his weapons to get open downfield, he can burn you, and that takes the win out beneath your sails. And then number 5, Green Bay has some talented wide receivers who are young. You might not know them, but they're young and talented, combined with some really good tight ends. They're about 3 tight ends deep. And that, coupled with Matt LaFleur's ability to scheme up good plays, to find the gaps in the defense, makes this team dangerous on offense, and we know that they're dangerous on the defensive side of the football as well. A key to this game, though, this Packers team, much of the year, a much maligned defense. They wanted to fire, Packers fans did, their defensive coordinator. Their defensive DVOA, 26th against the pass, 26th against the run. So this is going to be a big game plan for Kyle Shanahan. Opening script is going to be critical. His play designs, his play scheme, and the overall game plan. Is he going to be able to exploit this Packers defense? A Packers defense that, yes, might be 26th in DVOA against the pass and against the run, but has been better of late because they're changing coverages and they're getting home to the quarterback. And Niners offensive line, the right side of it, that's a little bit of a weakness. I love how Jordan Love hung tough in the pocket against the Cowboys. He made high-level plays, and that's part of the reason why he had a perfect QBR. Not everything was easy for him, but he made difficult plays look easy. And this year, he had one of the more under-the-radar 32 touchdown, 11 interception games that you'll ever see. Completion percentage below league average at 64. Some of that because he likes to get aggressive and take some shot plays. Green Bay was certainly explosive in this game against Dallas, but 32 touchdowns, 11 picks on nearly 4,200 yards. That's a really, really solid season for a first-time starter. What's also of note here is how Love fares under pressure and when blitzed. This is hopefully something that Steve Wilks, Niners defensive coordinator, is going to take a look at. When Jordan Love is under pressure this year, completing 49% of his passes, more than 1,000 yards, yards per attempt 6.8, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. When he is blitzed, and sometimes Steve Wilks can get aggressive in blitzing, but oftentimes he's calculated with it, 65% completion percentage, 1,600 yards, 7.1 yards per attempt, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. Jordan Love seems to make really good decisions when teams dial up the blitz. So that's something that Steve Wilks is going to have to keep in mind during game planning throughout this week. Aaron Jones as well has been on a tear. So this Packers team is a team that is multifaceted, diverse, and multiple. They can carve you up on the ground. When they get downhill like they did against Dallas, nobody was stopping them. But through the air, they can also really sling it, as Jordan Love was slinging that thing. Tackling, going to be important. Because of Matt LaFleur's scheme, guys often are running wide open, and they can run the football. And this 49ers team has been awful at tackling all year. It's been one of the blemishes on their resume. And when you can't tackle, especially in a big playoff game, when things get a little bit tight, it keeps your defense on the field. Your defense then wears down and gets tired, and it extends possessions and keeps your offense off the field if you're the Niners. San Francisco does have the experience edge by far, and it is not even close from head coach Kyle Shanahan to the roster, offensively and defensively. This is one of the younger teams in the National Football League, and that's why this run has been really impressive for Green Bay, is because they are well ahead of schedule, and they look to be a force to be reckoned with as we project into the future. But the chances that they go on the road to Dallas and they go on the road to San Francisco, if they pull off those 2 wins, what an improbable ride for the Green Bay Packers. With that, I ask you to predict the score between San Francisco and Green Bay once more down in the comments section. My prediction, I think this game is going to be tough. I think this game is going to be physical. This game is going to cause a lot of you to be a nervous wreck. But I think with San Francisco's experience edge, with their talent edge, I do think the Niners, with home field advantage, the fact that they are the better football team, and they have the week's rest, end up winning this game to go to the NFC Championship game by a final score of 28-24. Do not miss our coverage all throughout this week. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Niners, Packers, divisional round. Cannot wait for it. And we're going to talk about it all week right here on the show.